To be or not to be that is the question.
Yeah.
It's probably the most famous line ever written, right? Echoes everywhere.
Absolutely. Hard to escape that one.
But here's what we want to, get into in today's deep dive. Is it really the only question facing the Prince of Denmark?
That's the thing, isn't it? There's so much more going on.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're about to plunge into, well, a whole world teeming with betrayal, haunting ghosts, really deep introspection, and this relentless hunt for justice.
It's a journey.
It really is. And
Yeah.
this isn't just about, analyzing a play. It's about a foundational text that still captivates us, challenges us, and reveals so much about, well, human nature itself.
Precisely. Today, we are taking that deep dive into William Shakespeare's Hamlet. It's not just his most famous tragedy, it's quite possibly his most complex.
Which is saying something.
Right. So our mission really is to pull out those crucial bits of knowledge, those surprising insights that'll help you understand why this play is still so popular, so incredibly relevant after all these centuries.
And how it connects to us now.
Exactly. Connecting its timeless ideas directly to the challenges, we still face in our lives today. Think of it as your shortcut to being really well informed about one of the greatest stories ever told.
Okay, so to really unpack Hamlet, to get why it hit so hard, we kind of need to step back first, right? Immerse ourselves in the world Shakespeare was actually writing for.
Yeah, the Elizabethan era, it's not just scenery.
No, it's beliefs, it's fears, they're woven right into the play. They crank up the tension, the terror. Like, take the fear of ghosts. What would that have actually felt like for someone sitting in the audience back then?
It's vital to grasp just how real that fear was. This wasn't just, a theatrical trick or a spooky story. People genuinely believed encountering a ghost could mess you up badly.
Like, actually dangerous.
Oh, yeah. Drive you mad, or worse, lead your soul straight to hell. So when the ghost of King Hamlet stalks onto that stage, it wasn't just a boo moment. It tapped into one of their deepest, most primal fears. It would have been profoundly chilling. It immediately sets this unsettling mood that goes way beyond the stage lights, makes the supernatural feel terrifyingly real,
Wow. And what's really fascinating, you mentioned this before, is how Shakespeare kind of mixed different religious ideas about ghosts together.
He did, masterfully. You had both Catholic and Protestant beliefs floating around, often clashing, and he wove them together to make something even more, ambiguous and unsettling.
So what were those different takes?
Well, from a Catholic viewpoint, ghosts were often seen as souls from purgatory, right? Souls of the recently departed, maybe with unfinished business, needing something done so they could find peace. Not necessarily evil, just restless.
Okay.
But on the flip side, the Protestant view, especially the more hardcore puritanical strands, often saw ghosts as basically bad news. Malicious spirits, demons in disguise.
Oh, right.
Yeah, capable of possessing bodies or creating illusions to trick specific people, usually to tempt them into sin.
So Shakespeare's ghost is which one?
That's the genius. It has elements of both. It talks about being stuck in purgatory, which is Catholic, but it's also pushing Hamlet towards violent revenge, which could be seen as demonic temptation from a Protestant view.
Ah, so you're never quite sure.
Exactly. That ambiguity keeps the audience and Hamlet himself guessing. Is it really his father's suffering soul, or is it a devil trying to damn him? That uncertainty just ramps up the suspense in Hamlet's whole moral crisis.
Then it wasn't just ghosts they worried about, right? There were other beliefs floating around.
Oh, definitely. Remember, Elizabethan cosmology was this whole rich tapestry. You had the idea of the humors controlling your personality, like if you had too much black bile, you were melancholic.
Like Hamlet.
Quite possibly, yes. Or too much choler made you angry. And they believed the stars, your horoscope at birth, could map out your life. It was this very holistic view where everything, absolutely everything, was connected.
So it wasn't just individual fears. It was like a whole system, a cosmic order.
Precisely. And that brings us smack into another huge Elizabethan concept that's absolutely key to understanding the chaos in Denmark. The Great Chain of Being.
Okay, the Great Chain of Being. What exactly was that, and why was messing with it considered so, catastrophic?
So think of the Great Chain of Being as this divinely ordered ladder, a hierarchy that placed every single thing in the universe in its proper spot.
Everything.
Everything. Right at the top, you've got God, Christ, the Holy Spirit, then come the angels, then humanity, but even that's ordered kings first, then nobles, down to commoners, peasants. Below humans, you get animals, then plants, and right at the bottom, inanimate stuff like rocks and water.
Wow. A place for everything and everything in its place.
Pretty much. Each link was distinct, but they were all connected, forming this perfect unbroken chain. Order, stability, divinely ordained.
And the scary part for Elizabethans was that breaking a link, especially near the top, that caused ripples, right? Big ones.
Huge ones, tragic consequences throughout the entire system. And Shakespeare, in Hamlet, he leans into this hard. He spends the whole play showing the catastrophic results of disrupting this chain.
How does that show up right at the start?
Well, the play opens almost immediately with the ghost appearing. That's not just spooky, it's the first chilling signal that something is rotten in the state of Denmark. And that rot, Shakespeare traces it directly back to Claudius's actions. Killing King Hamlet, his own brother, the rightful king, and then grabbing the throne. That's not just murder and ambition.
It's breaking the chain.
Exactly. It's a massive subversion of the great chain of being. It shatters the divine order, and the consequences, immediate chaos, social order collapses, people can't live peacefully. There's no stability, no serenity in Denmark from that point on, not until the very, very end.
So Claudius's crime isn't just personal, it's like cosmic.
Absolutely. It unleashes chaos on the whole kingdom. It really sets the stage for everything that follows.
Okay, so with that foundation, this broken order, this cosmic rot, the tragedy of Hamlet, starts its relentless unfolding. We land in Elsinore, right? Dark, cold, foggy castle walls. You can almost feel the gloom.
Instantly sets that melancholy, foreboding tone. And yeah, while the court, under the new King Claudius, might look like it's running smoothly on the surface.
There's something underneath.
Oh, yeah. This profound, unsettling tension just simmering. It's almost palpable.
And that tension finds a focus pretty quick. We hear about the guards, Bernardo, Marcellus, and Horatio, seeing this terrifying ghost, the late King Hamlet.
Right. And Horatio, being the scholar, the voice of reason, he immediately connects this apparition to the bigger picture, the political instability.
He mentions Fortinbras.
He does. He recounts how old King Hamlet defeated old Fortinbras and took his lands. Now, young Fortinbras is stirring, raising an army, clearly aiming to get those lands back. Horatio calls this the main motive for their nervous watch.
So the ghost isn't just a family problem, it's tied to state security.
Exactly. It shows the private grief and the public unease are totally intertwined, both stemming from that initial act of corruption by Claudius.
Then we cut to the court scene. Claudius, now married to Gertrude, Hamlet's mother. He's trying to project this image of control, of leadership.
Putting on the kingly robes, making speeches.
But our eyes go straight to Hamlet, still in black, clearly heartbroken, deep in mourning. And his mother, Gertrude, asks him almost casually, "Why seems it so particular with thee?"
It's such a telling line from her, almost dismissive of his grief.
And Hamlet's reply just drips with pain and disgust, doesn't it? "Seems, madam. Nay, it is. I know not. Seems." Wow.
That line is incredibly powerful. It immediately flags a central theme. Hamlet's struggle with appearance versus reality. He sees this huge gap between how things look and how rotten they actually are. For him, nothing seems to be what it is anymore.
He feels like everyone's faking it.
Pretty much. And that feeling, that deep disillusionment, just explodes in his very first soliloquy.
Too sullied flesh one?
That's the one. He's wishing he could just melt away, disappear. He describes the whole world as an unweeded garden, choked with corruption and decay.
And he really lays into his mother's remarriage.
Oh, absolutely. His deepest disgust is aimed right at her most wicked speed in marrying Claudius, his uncle, less than 2 months after his father died. He calls their bed incestuous sheets. It's brutal.
That's where frailty, thy name is woman, comes from.
Exactly. A really bitter generalization born from his intense disappointment in his mother, but it's a bitterness that sadly spills over onto his view of all women, including Ophelia later on.
So this first speech isn't just grief, it's setting up these themes of corruption, betrayal, everything that's wrong with Denmark.
Precisely. It lays the groundwork for his whole psychological journey.
And then comes the moment that really lights the fuse, right? The ghost actually speaks to Hamlet.
The seismic moment, yes. After Horatio and the others tell Hamlet what they saw, he goes out, confronts the apparition.
Takes guts.
Definitely. And the ghost identifies itself as his father's spirit, doomed to walk the night in purgatory again, that Catholic echo, and then drops the bombshell.
The murder reveal.
The horrifying truth. Not a snake bite like the official story claimed. Murdered by Claudius. Poison poured in his ear while he slept.
Chilling. And the ghost wants revenge.
Desperately. It's vengeful, manipulative even. It urges Hamlet to avenge the murder, but with this really tricky condition. Leave his mother to heaven. Don't punish her directly, even though her quick marriage is part of the problem.
That puts Hamlet in a terrible spot.
Completely. His world is just shattered. He vows to remember, makes his friends swear secrecy, and then you get that chilling effect, the ghost crying, "Swear," from under the stage. Imagine that in an Elizabethan theater.
Goosebumps. Okay, so this encounter basically sets Hamlet on this incredibly dangerous, morally confusing path.
It really does. And his first move is strategic. To test the ghost story, remember, it could be a demon, and to start figuring out how to expose Claudius, Hamlet decides to put on an antic disposition.
He pretends to be crazy.
Essentially, yes. He starts acting really strangely, distant, erratic, saying wild things.
And people buy it.
Well, some do. Polonius, who's always meddling and thinks he knows everything, jumps to the conclusion that Hamlet's just lovesick for his daughter Ophelia. He thinks it's madness caused by unrequited love.
Convenient explanation for Polonius.
Very. But for Hamlet, this feigned madness is a crucial tool. It's a shield. It lets him watch everyone, test their reactions, try to ascertain what exactly is going on in the palace without showing his hand.
So there's method in his madness.
Definitely. It's a calculated performance. But you have to wonder, does playing mad start to blur the lines for him? It certainly takes a psychological toll.
And while Hamlet's doing his mad act, Claudius and Polonius aren't just sitting back, are they?
No way. Claudius is getting nervous, paranoid. He sends for Hamlet's old university buddies, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yeah, those two.
Yeah. Tells them to hang out with Hamlet, try to figure out what's wrong with him and report back. Basically spy on him.
Does Hamlet realize?
Almost immediately. Despite the antic disposition, he sees right through their fake friendship, calls them out on it. It just adds to his feeling of betrayal that everyone around him is false.
And it's around this time he gives that other big speech, right? What a piece of work is a man one.
Exactly. It's this incredible moment where he expresses just profound disillusionment. He praises humanity's potential, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, but then immediately undercuts it.
Saying the earth feels like a sterile promontory.
Yeah, and the air is like a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. It's such a stark contrast to typical Renaissance optimism. It shows how deep his despair runs, how isolated he feels in this world he now sees as totally corrupt and grotesque.
But even in that despair, he doesn't completely give up. The actors arrive.
Ah, the players. This sparks a brilliant, cunning idea in Hamlet, a way to get proof.
The delay within a play.
Precisely. He decides to have them perform a play called The Murder of Gonzago, but he's going to tweak it, add some lines, a scene that mirrors exactly how he suspects his father was murdered.
To see how Claudius reacts.
Exactly. His theory, and it's quite psychologically astute, is that guilty creatures sitting at a play can be so struck by the scene mirroring their crime that they basically give themselves away, proclaimed their malefactions.
So he's staging the truth to catch the liar.
It's his big strategic move, his attempt to use artifice, appearance to uncover the hidden reality. He spells it all out in that, "Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I" soliloquy. He beats himself up for delaying his revenge.
And then lands on the plan.
Yes, concluding with that famous line, "The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king." It's a brilliant, if cruel, psychological trap, his masterstroke.
But before the play happens, there's that awful scene with Ophelia. Claudius and Polonius set it up.
They do. Still trying to figure out his madness, they arrange for Hamlet to accidentally bump into Ophelia while they hide and watch.
And this is where to be or not to be comes in.
Right before the encounter, yes. Hamlet delivers that iconic soliloquy. It's just this profound, universal debate with himself. Life versus death. Suffering versus the unknown.
He talks about the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Yeah, the canes of life. And weighs them against the fear of what comes after death, that undiscovered country that terrifies us.
And his conclusion is that fear makes us cowards.
Pretty much. Conscience does make cowards of us all. That fear of the unknown, he says, makes us hesitate, makes big, important plans lose the name of action. It paralyzes us. It's not just his struggle. It's a deep dive into human inaction, fear, and existential dread.
And then right after that deep philosophical thought, he just turns on Ophelia.
It's whiplash, isn't it? He channels all his anguish, his bitterness about his mother, his resentment towards women in general, onto poor Ophelia.
Telling her, "Get thee to a nunnery."
Yes, accusing her and all women of being deceitful, breeders of sinners. It's incredibly harsh. Cruel even, and she's completely innocent in all this, just caught in the crossfire.
It's heartbreaking. You can see how it would destroy her.
Absolutely. It foreshadows her tragic end. It really underlines how the corruption in Denmark poisons everyone, especially the vulnerable.
Okay, so then comes the play, the mousetrap. Does it work? Does Hamlet catch the king?
Oh, it works perfectly. During the performance, when the actors stage the murder scene mirroring King Hamlet's death, Claudius just loses it.
What does he do?
He jumps up, calls for lights, storms out, completely disrupting the play. His reaction is so strong, so guilty, it's undeniable proof for Hamlet. Bingo. Conscience caught.
And Gertrude, what's her take?
Gertrude seems more oblivious or maybe willfully blind. She just dismisses the queen character in the play with that famous line, "The lady doth protest too much, methinks." Almost like she finds it a bit excessive, maybe hitting too close to home, but she doesn't seem to grasp the real significance.
So Hamlet has his proof. What next? The tragedy really kicks into high gear now, doesn't it?
Terrifyingly fast. Hamlet goes to confront his mother in her private chamber, her closet, and he doesn't hold back. He rips into her, accusing her, demanding she see the corruption she's part of.
And then he hears someone behind the curtain.
Exactly. He hears a noise behind the arras, the wall tapestry. Thinking it's Claudius spying, he impulsively draws his sword and stabs right through it.
But it's not Claudius.
No, it's Polonius. He kills Polonius.
Oh, God. And his reaction? Is he horrified?
Chillingly, not really. No immediate horror, no real apology. He almost uses Polonius's body as a prop to keep criticizing his mother, pointing out her poor judgment.
Wow, that's dark.
And then the ghost appears again. Only Hamlet sees him this time. And the ghost isn't congratulating him. It's reminding him of his blunted purpose. You killed the wrong guy. Focus on Claudius. And tells him to ease up on his mother, to step between her and her fighting soul.
So even the ghost thinks he's going too far with Gertrude.
Seems so. But Hamlet insists to his mother that he's not mad, that his words are revealing the rank corruption she needs to face.
This changes everything for Claudius, though. Killing Polonius.
Oh, absolutely. Claudius realizes Hamlet is now a direct, immediate threat. No more trying to figure him out. He needs him gone.
So he banishes him.
Immediately. Banishes him to England, and secretly plots his death. He sends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern with him, carrying a sealed letter instructing the English king to execute Hamlet on arrival.
Treacherous.
Utterly. And Hamlet, even facing exile and potential death, has this moment of incredibly dark humor. He tells Claudius that Polonius is at supper.
At supper.
Yeah. Not where he eats, but where he is eaten by worms, saying, "Your worm is your only emperor for diet." It's this grim, defiant joke about how death makes everyone equal. Even kings end up as worm food. Stark stuff.
Meanwhile, what's happening back in Denmark? Polonius dead, Hamlet gone.
Yeah.
What about Ophelia?
Oh, it's devastating for her. The combination of her father's death, killed by the man she loved, and Hamlet's brutal rejection just breaks her mind completely.
She really goes mad.
Undeniably, her sanity shatters. She starts wandering around, singing these fragmented, haunting songs, handing out flowers that all have symbolic meanings related to grief and betrayal. She says, "The violets withered all when my father died." Heartbreaking.
And how do people react to her? Claudius.
Claudius just dismisses it, showing that typical Elizabethan view. He says she's divided from herself and her fair judgment, without the which we are pictures or mere beasts. Basically, not fully human anymore.
The animal-esque treatment you mentioned.
Exactly. It prevented people from seeing her as a person suffering a terrible illness. She was just this pathetic, silly girl, driven mad by love and grief. It's a really tragic reflection of the biases of the time.
And then she drowns.
Yes. Later, Gertrude reports that Ophelia drowned, describing it almost poetically, falling from a willow tree into the brook, surrounded by her flowers. Whether it was suicide or accident is left ambiguous, but it's the tragic end for an innocent consumed by the court's poison.
Just casualty after casualty, and then Laertes comes back.
Laertes, Ophelia's brother, storms back from France. He is absolutely furious about his father's death, his sister's madness and death. He wants revenge, demands justice from Claudius.
Does Claudius handle him?
Oh, Claudius is a master manipulator, a true Machiavellian figure. He twists Laertes' righteous anger to serve his own ends. He explains why he hasn't punished Hamlet yet, Gertrude's love, the public's love for Hamlet.
Making excuses.
Totally. And then he channels Laertes' grief into a plot against Hamlet. Together, they conspire to kill Hamlet in a supposedly friendly fencing match.
Big duel.
Exactly. Laertes will use a sword with an unblunted, poisoned tip. And just in case that fails, Claudius will have a poisoned cup of wine ready for Hamlet to drink. Laertes even plans to dip his sword in extra poison. It's just dripping with malice.
A meticulously evil plan. It feels like we're hurtling towards the end now.
We are. The final act opens with that incredibly profound graveyard scene.
With the gravediggers.
Yes. Hamlet, who has escaped Claudius's plot, turns out he was captured by pirates, then released, and made his way back to Denmark.
Quite the detour.
Right. He stumbles upon these grave diggers preparing a grave. Turns out it's Ophelia's. And he gets into this philosophical chat with one of them about death, decay, how everyone ends up the same in the end.
And that's where Yorick's skull comes in.
Yes. He holds up the skull of Yorick, his father's court jester from when Hamlet was a child. Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. It's such a powerful, visceral moment about mortality. Looking at the skull of someone he knew, someone full of life and laughter, now just bone. It really drives home the transience of life.
Reduces everyone to dust.
Exactly. And the gravedigger also casually mentions he started his job the very day old Hamlet beat Fortinbras, the same day young Hamlet was born, which means Hamlet is now 30 years old. It kind of grounds him, gives him an age, right before the final confrontation.
And then Ophelia's funeral procession arrives.
Yes. Hamlet's there, hidden at first, but when Laertes, in his grief, leaps into the grave and curses Hamlet, Hamlet just can't contain himself.
He reveals himself.
Dramatically. He jumps out, declares his love for Ophelia. I loved Ophelia. More than 40,000 brothers could not match his love. It's this huge outpouring of emotion, maybe guilt too, but it's tragically too late.
Way too late. Okay, so the stage is set for the final confrontation. The duel.
The final act of justice and tragedy. Before the duel, Hamlet tells Horatio everything, how he found Claudius's letter ordering his execution on the ship to England.
The one Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were carrying?
Yes, and how he cleverly switched it with a forged letter ordering their execution instead, so they sailed to their deaths. It's a moment of cold, calculated, retributive justice from Hamlet.
He's changed by this point.
He seems more resolved, maybe accepting of fate. He even expresses some regret for how he treated Laertes earlier, saying he sees the image of my cause in Laertes' own quest for revenge. There's a hint of empathy, maybe maturity.
And then the fencing match starts. The rigged game begins.
It unfolds quickly. Laertes wounds Hamlet with the poisoned sword. Then, in a scuffle, the swords get swapped and Hamlet wounds Laertes with the same poisoned blade.
Oh, wow. Hoist by his own petard.
Pretty much. Meanwhile, Gertrude, thirsty, accidentally drinks from the poisoned cup Claudius prepared for Hamlet.
No.
She realizes too late, warns Hamlet, the drink, I am poisoned, and dies.
So the plot backfires spectacularly.
Completely. Laertes, dying, confesses the whole plot. The king's to blame. He admits his own treachery and acknowledges he's justly killed by his own poison.
And Hamlet.
Hamlet, knowing he's dying too from the poisoned wound, finally acts decisively against Claudius. He stabs the king with the poisoned sword, and he forces him to drink the rest of the poisoned wine. Here, thou incestuous, murderous, damned Dane, drink off this potion.
So finally, revenge accomplished.
Venges his father, punishes the villain, but at immense cost.
And as Hamlet dies, what are his last moments like?
He stops Horatio from drinking the poison too, from committing suicide. He tells him he has to live to report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied. Tell the true story.
Make sure history gets it right.
Exactly. And with his dying breath, he declares that Fortinbras, the Norwegian prince, should be the next king of Denmark. He has my dying voice. It's like he's trying to ensure some kind of stable future for the kingdom he couldn't save for himself.
And then Fortinbras arrives.
Right on cue, Fortinbras arrives with the English ambassadors, only to find the entire Danish royal court dead. Carnage everywhere.
What a scene.
Horatio, true to his promise, says he will explain the whole bloody mess of carnal, bloody, and unnatural acts, of accidental judgments, casual slaughters, and confirms, almost as an aside, that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead too. It's this total wipeout.
That gory show of corpses on stage.
Exactly. A classic feature of the revenge tragedy genre, like Kid's Spanish tragedy, which was a big influence.
Yeah.
But Shakespeare took that genre and just infused it with so much more psychological depth.
Which brings us to those profound questions the play leaves us with, doesn't it? Like the whole nature of revenge itself.
It's central. The ghost demands it, but Hamlet really struggles with it. Is it his duty, or is it a sin? Revenge belongs to God, in the Christian context he's in.
It seems like such a destructive path in the play.
It absolutely is. It acts like a poison itself, doesn't it? It consumes not just the target, but the avenger, too. Hamlet has to become colder, more ruthless. Laertes gets twisted by Claudius. It doesn't lead to peace or real justice, just more death.
Yeah, that cycle of violence just spirals, ending with almost everyone dead. It really makes you question if revenge is ever truly worth it. Does it solve anything or just create more misery?
A very modern question in a way. It suggests that even anger that feels justified, if it's unchecked, can just lead to self-destruction.
And then there's the whole theme of madness. Hamlet's antic disposition versus Ophelia's real breakdown.
Such a fascinating contrast. We talked about Hamlet's feigned madness, that strategic performance, his way of buying time and gathering information, that self-control against acting rashly, allowing him to observe.
But it feels like he walks a fine line sometimes.
He does. It raises questions about whether the mask starts to merge with the man. But Ophelia's madness is presented so differently. It's raw, undeniable, and tragically misunderstood.
Because of those Elizabethan ideas about hysteria.
Exactly. Seen as a purely female problem linked to biology, sexuality, emotion running wild. She wasn't seen as having a genuine illness, more like becoming less than human. Remember Claudius calling her pictures or mere beasts?
Terrible. It denied her humanity, her suffering.
It did. She became this pathetic figure, a silly girl, destroyed by love, which kind of let everyone else off the hook. It's a stark reminder of how gender bias shaped even the understanding of mental health. Those artworks you mentioned earlier really highlight this too. The way female fits were either seen as divine or demonic, depending on whether they served male power structures. Ophelia didn't serve anyone's purpose, so her suffering was just dismissed.
A real victim of her time and circumstances. Okay, another huge theme. Mortality. Death is just everywhere in this play.
Absolutely everywhere. Not just the pile of bodies at the end, but constantly reflected upon. Life's brevity, the inevitability of decay.
Which brings us back to be or not to be. It's more than just suicide, isn't it?
Oh, much more. It's that universal wrestling match with existence itself. Why endure suffering the slings and arrows when you could end it? But then there's the fear of the unknown, the undiscovered country of death.
That fear paralyzes us.
Conscience does make cowards of us all. It stops us from taking action, he says. It's this incredibly raw expression of doubt, inaction, and just the terrifying weight of being human and having to choose between suffering and oblivion. It asks us all, what's nobler, to fight or to flee?
And then the Yorick scene makes that abstract fear incredibly concrete.
Visceral, isn't it? Alas, poor Yorick, holding the skull of someone you knew, it just strips away everything. Rank, wit, life itself, all gone, reduced to bone. It's the ultimate equalizer. King, jester, beggar all end up as dust. It cuts right through all the plotting and drama to that fundamental truth.
And this focus on death, on what's real underneath, ties into that other massive theme. Appearance versus reality. The whole play feels like it's built on deception.
It really is. Nothing is quite what it seems. Hamlet's feigned madness, obviously. The play within the play, using theater to expose truth. Claudius's smiling, kingly facade hiding murder and incest. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern pretending to be friends.
It's layer upon layer of lies and masks.
And it all stems from that initial act of deception, Claudius's crime. His actions don't just kill a king, they poison the entire kingdom. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. That moral corruption infects everything, every relationship, driving all the tragedy. It's about how dishonesty at the top can rot a whole system from within.
It's easy to see why Hamlet still feels so relevant, why it has this enduring legacy. These characters feel so real, so psychologically deep.
They've become archetypes, haven't they? Hamlet, the brooding intellectual, Claudius, the smooth villain, Gertrude, the compromised mother, Ophelia, the tragic victim. They offer such rich ground for exploring the human psyche, complex motivations.
And you mentioned how it changed the revenge tragedy genre.
Yeah, it took the basic structure from plays like the Spanish tragedy, but made the villain, Claudius, much more complex, more believable than just a stock bad guy. And crucially, it dove deep into Hamlet's head. His intense subjectivity, his doubts and thoughts, blurring that line between his inner world and the external action. That focus on the psychology of the Avenger was revolutionary.
That psychological depth must be why its struggles feel so universal, even now.
I think so. Hamlet's grief for his father, Ophelia's despair, those are timeless experiences of loss that everyone can connect with on some level. We all grapple with grief.
And his indecision. That feeling of being stuck, pulled between action and inaction, second-guessing yourself, that feels incredibly modern.
Absolutely. Facing moral ambiguity, weighing the consequences of big choices, that resonates with challenges we all face. But it's also important to see his journey, right? He does eventually move from that paralysis.
Towards the end, he seems more accepting, more purposeful.
Yes, there's a shift, a sense that he realizes his fate is, in a way, in his own hands, or perhaps guided by providence. He becomes more determined to fulfill what he sees as his duty, even knowing the likely cost. That journey from confusion to a kind of fatalistic resolve is powerful too.
And the whole search for truth in a world full of lies, that feels incredibly relevant today, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Trying to figure out what's real, maintaining your own integrity when everything around you seems corrupt.
Spot on. That's why Ben Jonson's line about Shakespeare being not of an age but for all time feels so true for Hamlet. The themes, family betrayal, political ambition, love, loss, mental anguish, they just keep speaking to us. That comment about it being like, a South African soapy today because people can relate, it captures that universal human drama perfectly.
It really does. So summing up this deep dive, we've seen the destructive power of revenge, the complex ways madness is portrayed, the constant shadow of mortality, and that endless struggle between what seems real and what truly is. Hamlet is just this incredibly rich text for exploring, well,
Yeah,
the human condition.
couldn't say it better myself. It keeps posing difficult questions.
And that leaves us with maybe the biggest one, the one that echoes after the bodies are cleared from the stage. Hamlet succeeds, right? He avenges his father, exposes Claudius, but the price is astronomical. Almost everyone is dead.
Total devastation.
So what does this profound tragedy ultimately tell us about justice? Is any cause, even a seemingly righteous one, worth that kind of annihilation? What's the true cost of settling scores?
That's the haunting question, isn't it?
It really is. And it's a question Hamlet doesn't necessarily answer for us, but asks us to keep wrestling with long after the story ends.